At a 2.3-mile road course in Austin, Texas, drivers were cutting corners right in front of NASCAR officials, and nobody was stopping them. More than 40 laps were thrown out in practice and qualifying for track limits violations, but during the actual race, a completely different corner was being cut wide open, and NASCAR said nothing. When the checkered flag fell, the sport's best road racer was in the middle of the controversy, and 2 hours after that race ended, NASCAR's managing director stood in front of reporters and said words that don't come easily in this sport. "We will not make that error again." That admission set off a chain of events that now has NASCAR deploying artificial intelligence cameras, installing tire barriers at new corners, and rewriting exactly what gets policed at Circuit of the Americas. And the driver at the center of the conversation, Shane Van Gisbergen in the '88 WeatherTech Chevrolet for Trackhouse Racing, hasn't even won at this track yet. But the rest of the field is already treating the COTA road course like it belongs to him. The question is whether NASCAR's new enforcement system changes that, or whether it was ever really about SVG at all. Here's what actually happened, what NASCAR admitted, and what it means when the Cup Series returns to Austin. Christopher Bell took the win at the 2025 COTA Cup race on March 2nd, crossing the line with a margin of 0.433 seconds over William Byron in the 24 Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. Tyler Reddick ran third, Chase Elliott fourth in the 9 Chevrolet, and Kyle Busch came home fifth. It looked, on the surface, like a clean race. 4 cautions, 20 lead changes, 9 different leaders. Van Gisbergen finished 6th in the '88 Trackhouse Chevrolet, having led 23 laps. But underneath that clean finishing order, something had been unraveling since the very first laps of Stage 1. Drivers were cutting Turn 6. Not just one driver, multiple cars were going wide of the intended track boundary at Turn 6, and nobody from NASCAR was saying a word about it. The broadcast team was picking it up. Teams were getting on their scanners trying to figure out if it was legal, and NASCAR, watching from their officiating center, was aware it was happening in real time. The reason it wasn't being penalized? NASCAR had made a deliberate, but poorly communicated, decision not to police Turn 6 at the 2025 race. The track had been shortened to 2.3 miles for that event, down from the full 3.41-mile Grand Prix circuit. When NASCAR redesigned the enforcement zones for the condensed layout, Turn 6 was removed from the list of policed corners. Only the turns 3 through 5S's were subject to the track limits rule, Rule 10.5.2.6.H, which carries a graduated penalty structure from warning to stop-go to black flag to disqualification. The problem was that not everyone in the paddock got the memo with equal clarity. Brad Moran, the Cup Series managing director, addressed it directly after the race. "We had no questions. No one came to the hauler on it. We thought we were pretty clear. We caught on a team scanner that they weren't sure about Turn 6 shortcutting. Obviously, we watched it take place right from the beginning of the race." That is a remarkable statement from a race official. Not that drivers were cutting a corner, but that NASCAR watched it happen from the opening laps, caught at least one team on radio actively questioning whether it was allowed, and still did not issue a clarification until the confusion had already played out in front of a national broadcast audience. Moran's follow-up was even more direct. "We will not make that error again." But that's only half the story, because the ES's enforcement, the corners that were being policed in 2025, created their own chaos before a single green flag lap was ever run. More than 40 practice and qualifying laps were disallowed at the 2025 COTA race weekend for turns 3 through 5 violations. 40-plus laps. That is not a minor officiating footnote. That is a significant portion of an entire weekend's preparation time being wiped from the books because drivers were exceeding track limits at the S's. Teams were building setups, making adjustments, planning race strategy, and the data underneath all of that was being invalidated lap by lap. This is where the context of Shane Van Gisbergen makes the story significantly bigger than one confused corner call. SVG is, by every measurable standard, the best road course driver in NASCAR right now. In his Cup Series road course starts between his debut in 2023 and his current 2026 campaign, he has won 6 times. That is a win rate on circuits that no active driver in the series comes close to matching. For reference, Dale Earnhardt Jr. never won a road course cup race in his entire career. Tony Stewart, one of the most versatile drivers in the sport's history, won 7 road course cup races across his career. Van Gisbergen is approaching that territory in his first few seasons full-time in the series. His competitors are not shy about acknowledging it. Tyler Reddick has said directly that it drives him nuts going to a road course and getting beaten by Shane. AJ Allmendinger, himself one of the most respected road course racers in the paddock, has talked about studying everything he can in the car trying to close the gap. Daniel Suarez, SVG's own Trackhouse teammate, has suggested SVG has more road course experience than the entire field combined. When your own teammate is saying that, you understand the level of advantage being discussed. But here is the critical detail that gets lost in the narrative. COTA is the one road course where Van Gisbergen has not won in the Cup Series. His best finish at Circuit of the Americas in Cup competition is 6th, which came in the very race at the center of this controversy. Before that, he made Cup starts at COTA in 2024 as part of a part-time schedule, finishing 20th. Chicago, Sonoma. Other circuits, he has collected wins. COTA has remained out of reach. It is also worth noting that Van Gisbergen does carry a history with track limits from his supercars days in Australia. He reportedly received course-cutting penalties at Bathurst across multiple seasons. But his NASCAR record coming into 2026 is clean. No Cup penalties. Not one. The 2025 COTA situation, where he and other drivers cut Turn 6, was not a penalty situation because NASCAR had not designated Turn 6 as a policed corner. He did not break a rule that existed. He found a gap in enforcement that NASCAR itself created and failed to communicate. And then came the part nobody saw coming. NASCAR's decision to not just fix the communication problem, but to technologically overhaul how they police road course track limits entirely. On February 24, 2026, NASCAR's Mike Ford, the managing director of racing communications, went on the NASCAR.com Hauler Talk podcast and laid out exactly what is changing at COTA for the upcoming race. The changes are more significant than a simple clarification memo. First, Turn 6 is now policed. Full stop. The shortened 2.3-mile layout is still in effect, but Turn 6 is no longer a free pass. Any driver exceeding the track limits there is subject to the same graduated penalty structure, Rule 10.5.2.6.h, as the S's. Second, tire packs are being added at Turn 6 and Turn 19. These are 450-pound plastic blocks positioned on the inside of the corners that serve as a physical deterrent. The S's already had tire packs from the 2025 race weekend. Now the enforcement physical footprint is expanding to 2 additional corners. Third, and this is the most significant technological shift, NASCAR is deploying AI-powered computer-generated cameras they are calling comp cams. These are automated systems with preset track limit parameters built into them. When a car crosses those parameters, the system generates an automatic alert to the officiating team in real time. This is not a spotter watching a monitor and making a judgment call. This is a machine running continuous comparison between where the car is and where the car is supposed to be, and flagging violations the moment they occur. Real-time review. Automated detection. A system that does not blink, does not get distracted, and does not need Brad Moran to catch something on a team scanner to know it happened. NASCAR also issued a broader early 2026 memo on road course enforcement that covered COTA's ESSs, Sonoma, and other road course venues on the schedule. Transponder-monitored virtual lines, stricter pre-race driver meetings, and reinforced briefing material across all road course venues. This is not a one-track fix. This is a systemic upgrade to how NASCAR handles the technical demands of circuit racing. But the real fallout didn't happen on the track. It happened in the language NASCAR used to describe what went wrong. Brad Moran saying, "We will not make that error again," is not typical race official communication. Officials in this sport, like officials in most professional sports, are practiced at describing decisions in neutral language that avoids implying error. When the managing director of the Cup Series uses the word error, unprompted, publicly, in the immediate aftermath of a race, that is an institutional acknowledgement of a significant failure, not a penalty protest, not a team appeal. The governing body self-identifying that they watched a problem unfold in real time and failed to prevent it. The paddock heard it. Teams are now entering the 2026 COTA race weekend with a completely different understanding of what is and is not legal at this track. The ambiguity that existed in 2025, which was itself different from 2024 when the full circuit was in use and Turn 6 was policed, has been replaced with expanded enforcement, physical deterrence, and automated monitoring. Every team's road course setup work now has to account for corners that were effectively invisible to officiating just 12 months ago. And when you look at where the field stands heading into the 2026 COTA race, you can see exactly why this enforcement shift carries real competitive weight. Van Gisbergen is now driving the '97 Chevrolet for Trackhouse Racing on a multi-year contract confirmed in 2025, with the team committing to him as a long-term Cup presence. He is no longer a part-time or developing presence in this paddock. He is a full-time committed Cup driver who is approaching road courses the way Kyle Larson approaches short tracks, as expected wins. The rest of the field has adjusted their preparation accordingly. The competitors who finished in front of SVG at the 2025 COTA race, Bell, Byron, Reddick, Elliott, Bush, are all capable road course performers, but none of them carry his road course win rate into the event, and none of them have as much institutional experience navigating circuit racing at the highest levels of multiple international championships. When Suarez says SVG has more experience than the entire field combined, he is not exaggerating for effect. The tire packs at turn 6 and turn 19 changed the physical risk calculation at corners SVG, and others were previously cutting without consequence. The AI cameras eliminate the possibility of a driver testing the limits on early laps and getting away with it, while officials sort out their enforcement posture. The expanded penalty structure means the first violation now carries immediate consequences that compound quickly. Warning, stop-go, black flag. In a 90-minute road course race, a single stop-go penalty can cost a driver a top 5 finish, or worse, turn a potential win into a mid-pack result. What NASCAR has built for 2026 is a track limits environment with essentially no gray area. That standardization favors the drivers and teams who are most disciplined and most precisely calibrated in their car placement. And at the highest levels of circuit racing, that discipline is often a separator between the elite and the very good. And that sets up what could be the most critical road course storyline of the 2026 season. COTA is the one circuit on the schedule where Van Gisbergen is still looking for his first Cup win. Every other road course on the calendar has seen him in victory lane or within striking range. Austin has not delivered for him in Cup competition, and now the track is being policed differently than it was in either of his previous starts there. The corners that define the 2025 race, the confusion, the cutting, the broadcasting questions, the team scanner intercept, are now tire-packed and AI monitored. The enforcement changes are not targeted at SVG, and it would be inaccurate to frame them that way. They are a direct response to NASCAR's own admitted communication failure. But the practical effect of tighter enforcement at a road course where the field is actively studying how to close the gap on the sport's dominant circuit racer, that is a legitimate competitive variable heading into race weekend. Watch turn 6. Watch the AI camera enforcement in the first few laps of Stage 1 when drivers are still establishing their lines and risk tolerance. Watch whether any team attempts to test the new parameters early and draws a warning, and what the knock-on effect is for their race strategy. Watch whether the teams who spent the most time studying the new enforcement zones in practice and qualifying. Remember, 40-plus laps were thrown out at COTA in 2025. Manage their preparation time better under the expanded policing framework, and watch Van Gisbergen. Because COTA is the hole in his road course resume, and he is arriving in 2026 with a new car number, a multi-year deal that signals Trackhouse's full commitment to him as a long-term Cup presence, and a track that just got stricter at corners he previously navigated without penalty. Whether the new enforcement tightens the field's margins at a circuit that has so far resisted him, or whether he finds a way to win it clean, on merit, under the strictest track limits regime NASCAR has ever brought to Austin, that answer is coming. The green flag drops at COTA, and for the first time in this series, there are tire packs, artificial intelligence cameras, and a managing director's public admission of error all riding on what happens in turn 6.